Welcome, everybody. This is Soul Force and Social Change, Gandhi and King, a course that has been taught since January 30th, 2025, and now we are in the 9th week of a 10-week course. We have finished the Gandhi portion. We are approaching the completion of the Martin Luther King portion. And next week, I have scheduled at least 2, possibly 3 guest speakers. I will announce them, I hope, tomorrow and also on the WhatsApp. So I strongly encourage you all, if you can, to attend next week's sessions, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which will include guest speakers who I think you will be inspired by. Today, you're still stuck with me, Michael Sunleitner. I'm sorry, but I am highly organized, and my desire today is to have session number 26, Martin Luther King's Legacy in the United States and Beyond. I have chosen to not just speak in general terms, but to focus more on what I think is of interest to many of you. And that is his legacy now. That is, how did he impact or not the 2024 elections in the United States? And how have those elections impacted the world? I will suggest to you in broad terms that Martin Luther King's legacy certainly lives on in a great many people, including myself, more in opposition to what is happening today than in happiness relating to what is happening today. So his legacy is a positive legacy that is not happy with the election of Donald Trump and with what is happening in the US today in relation to cutting back voting rights. So I have chosen to have this session focusing on, number 1, the Donald Trump election victory of November 2024. 2, the suggested new law by Donald Trump called the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. God, what a mouthful. It's SAFE, SAFE Act for short. I'll discuss it later. It's a very, very dangerous proposed voting rights in the United States. And then 3, I would like to open it up for you to ask any questions you like about Donald Trump and how people who are opposed to him may be strategizing to continue the legacy of Martin Luther King in a positive way. So that is my plan for the day. For the next 40 minutes or so, I will discuss Donald Trump's election victory, the SAFE Act that he proposes, and then anything that you would like to discuss relating to Donald Trump. His wife, his children, his eating habits, his where he went to college, Elon Musk and his relationship to Donald Trump. That is in part 3. So if we can we can cover those bases and prepare ourselves well for tomorrow. Tomorrow, session number 27, will focus on Narendra Modi and Donald Trump. and how these are challenging times. I'm going to outline their idea systems that help to explain the policies that are coming out in the United States and to some extent also in India. At the end of these 40 minutes, we can have our breakout sessions as you like. If there's a small group of us, we can continue to simply talk about anything you want. And I will again try to repeat some of the confusion relating to the course requirements at the end of our session today so that we can be clear. Is that reasonably good? I hope so. And for those of you who are watching this recording, I hope that I haven't yet confused you too badly, and you may find some of the information I share of importance. Akshaya, you have your finger up. I'm happy to see it. Is there anybody else who would like to say anything before I begin? Always, always, always ask a question when it is in your mind. You can unmute yourself and I will try to respond to you as you have the question or you want to make the comment. That is all right with me. It is no disrespect to me. If you are thinking, I like to see it happen. Okay. First, Donald Trump's election of November 2024. You can see in the handout that Harshal has provided, you can screenshot this if you like. And I hope that then I can move more swiftly to discuss the election results. And this is not entirely simple. You will have questions, I hope, relating to this. First, in November of 2024, the registered voter turnout in the United States was less than 64%. I know this is confusing to many of you because in some countries like Germany, where some of you are from, there is no voter registration. Everybody is automatically allowed to vote if you're a citizen. In the United States, you have to intentionally register to vote. And only about 80% of people in the United States are registered. So of the people who are registered to vote, 64% voted in November. Another way of looking at this is called the VAP turnout. That's the voting age population turnout. For example, in Australia, where they have automatic registration, they have a voting age population turnout of over 90%. That's, I believe, the best, most functioning democracy in the world, currently in Australia. In the United States, the percentage of the voting age population, who are 18 and over, that voted was only 54%. What do you mean? Well, basically, if we had automatic registration, the turnout in last November would have been only 54%. If everyone could vote, given the numbers that did vote, it would be 54%. It seems higher at about 64% because that is the voter registration turnout. That's a smaller number of people who are already registered to vote. So Donald Trump won less than 50% of the vote. He won less than 50% of the roughly 54% who actually voted, who are voting age. He won decisively, but with less than 50% of about 54% of the people who theoretically could have voted but did. In other words, only about 26% of the US population voted for Trump. 26%? 26 out of 100 voted for Trump, and he won. That might already indicate a dysfunctioning democracy. Kamala Harris, uh, she she won just a little less than 1% less than Trump, 48.4%. The presidential candidate that I voted for, the Green Party candidate, Jill Stein, she won 0.5%. I really lost. The important thing I think to understand here is that Donald Trump is not as popular as you may think. He won less than 50% of the about 54% of the people in the United States of voting age. A quarter of the US population. Now, he won most of the states. 30 out of 50 states went with Mr. Trump. He won the Electoral College, which is a very strange system that we have, but decisively. 312 electoral votes to 226. We can discuss that if you want. But the bottom line, I think, is that he was very popular at the state level for those who voted. And only about half of those who are voting age actually voted. Only 54%. Now, who voted for Mr. Trump? White men. 60% of the white men who voted for Trump. 53% of the white women who voted for Trump. He won with the white vote. There was a serious racial divide. You can see it. Kamala Harris, who is of mixed racial background, her father was from Jamaica, and her mother was from India. So she is of mixed race. Harris won 55% of the women who voted. So you can see a great gender gap between male and female. If only women had voted, Harris would have been president. But it was white men and white women who were voting for him that helped him win. Harris won 83% of the black vote, 75% of the Spanish-speaking vote, and so you can see that it was a very racially divided election. We can tie that in to what we discussed yesterday. When we have policies over the past 15 years that have reduced the ability of non-white and poor people to vote, and that is a fact that we discussed last class period, Mr. Trump's election victory in November was related to that period of 15 years reducing the ability of non-white and poor people to vote. That set up the stage for him to be able to win a majority of the white vote and win the election. If more non-white people, and especially poor people, had voted and been able to be registered to vote, Kamala Harris would have won. So in many ways, Donald Trump won in November because Republicans were reducing the ability of people to vote for the previous 15 years. Now, to understand the reality in the United States, we can look at Congress and how the Republicans took control of both chambers of the legislative branch, the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. Do you want to ask a question? On my phone, oftentimes there's a green square around a person if they desire to speak. Any of you can unmute if you like. So I'm hoping that you're now clear. Donald Trump's victory in November was not with great widespread support. He won with only about 25, 26% of the voting age population supporting him. He won with white voters supporting him. And that's how he won. Now, the legislative branch is supposedly the lawmaking branch. It makes policy, passes budgets, creates laws, creates ways of implementing the laws through the federal bureaucracy. Well, the House of Representatives is now Republican, 220, you can see, to 215. It's a very, very narrow majority in the House. In the Senate, out of 100 seats, it's 53 to basically 45, though there are two independents. So the Republicans have 53 out of 100 in the Senate, 220 out of 435 in the House. Very narrow margins. So Mr. Trump, to get a budget passed, as he did a week ago, has to have almost every vote. And he is really pressuring Republicans in the legislative branch to support him. You support me or else. What do you mean, or else? I can vote for whoever I want. I can pass laws that I want. Well, Mr. Trump says, Michael, if you're a Republican, you vote with me, or else. Or else what? Or else when you come up for re-election, I will support someone to run against you and you will be defeated and you will lose your job. Well, I'm not afraid of you, Mr. Trump. I'll vote the way I want. I'm a lawmaker. Mr. Trump has said, well, my friend, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, worth now over $400 billion, Elon Musk, who provided $275 million to my presidential campaign, Elon Musk, my friend, will spend money to defeat you in your election. He has the money. You will be defeated. So you vote the way I tell you to vote in the legislative branch. If you're a Republican, do not make me angry. Do you understand how Mr. Trump is basically being a bully with members of his own party who might not agree with him, but they are afraid of him and they go along with him. So he is barely able to get some things passed in the legislative branch. And the Democrats, of course, are very angry about it all. Are there questions about this before we discuss the SAFE Act, which is making me unsafe? He spent far more money than Joe Biden. And that was partly with the help of Elon Musk donating $275 million of Musk's own money to the Trump campaign. In the United States, over 90% of the time, if you spend more money in a Democratic campaign, you win. Money talks. It buys TV commercials. It buys paid advertisements on radio. It sends things to your mailbox. If you have more money and you use it wisely, you win. Mr. Trump had more money. He had more voter suppression of non-white people. And of those who turned out, the white population supported him. That's how he won. What do you think about that? Before we discuss how Mr. Trump is acting to make things more permanent in his favor. How do you feel about that? I am hearing a lot of traffic. Akshaya, you must be in your car? No. Well, there are 10 of you with us. At this moment, I'm assuming you may not be able to unmute, or you may not have a thought this moment. So let me discuss the SAFE Act. Again, in the handout, which you can screenshot and keep, the 2025 Safeguard America Voter Eligibility, or SAFE Act, is really dangerous. It would require everyone either registering to vote for the first time or updating their voter registration. You have to update your registration if you have a change of address or you change your declared party affiliation. In any case, if you're registering to vote, you have to prove your citizenship by presenting documentation in person, not online or via the postal service. Now, this doesn't sound like too unreasonable. If you're a United States citizen, shouldn't you be able to be asked to prove your citizenship? Use a valid passport or a birth certificate, and then you can register to vote, no problem. Well, it seems to be no problem, but actually, it is a solution to there being no problem. Currently, there's no evidence that non-citizens vote. There's virtually no evidence. This is simply a fear-mongering tactic that the supporters of Trump have used. Non-citizens, undocumented aliens, illegal people are voting. Can you give me some examples? Well, it's happening. Can you document what you're saying? It's happening. Well, honestly, there's no evidence of what you're saying is being true. So there's no real need to have this law. You're safeguarding voter eligibility by requiring citizenship proof where there is no evidence that non-citizens are voting. Well, there are examples. Well, you can cite a few isolated examples, but out of millions and millions of people who voted in 2024, there are fewer than 100 documented cases of a non-citizen voting. So this law is a solution in search of a problem. Ah, but there is a problem for the Republicans. They are very concerned about poor people and non-white people having an easy time voting, because if they can register, they will outvote the Republicans in the next election. So what can we do? Well, this is making the election safe for conservative Republicans. That's what it's doing. Look in the little notation in that paragraph. Only half of US adults have valid passports, and most of these are white and middle class. Over 21 million people in the United States have easy access to a birth certificate. It can be very difficult. For me, for example, to get a copy of my birth certificate, I have to, one, communicate to Wichita, Kansas, over 1,000 miles from where I live, to Sedgwick County, where the records are kept for my birth certificate. Second, I have to prove to them that I'm Michael Johnson, because I was born Michael Johnson. I changed my last name when I married. So I have to show that Michael Sonnleitner and Michael Johnson are one and the same person. Once I get my birth certificate, which I have to pay for, I could then, under this law, register to vote. Since I've changed my address to a new city, I have to re-register. It would be very difficult for me, under the SAFE Act, to re-register to vote. It's even more difficult for more poor people, non-white people, and others. And as I mentioned, I changed my last name. Over 60 million married women in the United States usually adopt their husband's last name at their marriage. If those 60 million women wanted to vote in the next election and they had to re-register because they changed their address or something else happened, they would have the same problem that I have. They would have to contact the county that they were born in. That could be in New York State, Alaska, wherever it was that they were born. They would have to show that their married name and their birth name are the same person. And then they would have to get a piece of paper, that is their birth certificate, and show it in person where they're registering to vote. They couldn't just send a copy through an email. They couldn't just communicate through the postal service. It has to be in person, which is another layer of difficulty. I hope you can see how the SAFE Act is making it really much more difficult for people of relative low wealth, non-white people, to be able to prove their citizenship and able to be able to register. It will reduce voter registration, and the result will be greater suppression of many non-white, lower economic status people and women being able to vote. For Donald Trump and the Republicans, that's good, because non-white, poor, and women don't vote Republican. They don't vote Republican. So you can see that the SAFE Act is really trying to protect the Republican majority and the support for people like Donald Trump. I hope that's not confusing. I hope that you can see how dangerous this is. It's not just academic. Uh, the voter suppression helped Donald Trump get elected. The SAFE Act will help future Republican conservatives be elected. It is almost the opposite of Martin Luther King's Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Voting Rights Act of 65 expanded the right to vote. It made it easier for non-white people to vote, easier for poor people to vote. Local areas that resisted the registration of Black people, for example, under the 1965 law, could have federal armed marshals come to the local registration place and physically enforce your right to register. That is how a great many non-white and other people were able to register after 1965. That is why Barack Obama was able to win the presidency. Donald Trump is trying to cut all that back. Do you see it? I hope you can. Most people in the United States don't even know this is happening. In fact, this week, because there is some difficulty within the Republican leadership in the legislature branch, Donald Trump has issued an executive order. His executive order is basically trying to make the SAFE Act policy even without Congress, the legislative branch, making it into a law. Donald Trump is trying to decree it. He's trying to simply announce it and enforce it without the legislative branch even passing a law. He was doing this week, and he's being fought in the courts by a number of civil rights groups. We will continue to discuss these things, which are serious, and we'll try to have some humor tomorrow as we look at the idea system of this new kind of fascism. This is what we will be covering tomorrow, and I hope more of you are able to come. I know that the Ramadan fast is coming to an end very soon, that there are many obligations, religious obligations for our Muslim brothers and sisters. I do hope that you may be able to still take time to attend this session tomorrow. Thankfully, the Ramadan fast will be finished by next week when we have the guest speakers. And so I hope at least many people can come back then.